That again?
Alina, can you hear us? It's Jason speaking. I'm at the meeting.
Yep.
Hello, sorry, just checking whether you guys can hear as well. I think you're on mute if you still hear us. We cannot hear you.
attest to what staff have
Yeah.
made recommendation on with respect to ensuring that that front streetscape is of a high quality design, so that that one-sided proposed building that, in my opinion, is very aesthetically pleasing, is what we would receive. Ensuring that front streetscape is of quality design, so that that one-sided proposed building that, in my opinion, is very aesthetically pleasing, is what we would receive.
Think you're on rewind.
Yeah. To date, I believe there's been one set of comments from the neighbors respecting this application, having concern as it relates to the lessened yard setbacks that are proposed through this application. There wasn't overly great detail provided in the comments received, so I suspect they're here this evening. And neighbors, holy fuck, this application, having concern as it relates to the lessened setbacks that are proposed through this application. There wasn't really great detail. There's been one set of comments received from the public, and I believe the member of the public is here this evening to speak to the application and provide us with some additional detail as to their concerns regarding the proposal. The comments weren't in depth, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you as committee may have. The application, provide us with some additional detail as to their concerns regarding the proposal.
We're having lots of fun here. Modern technology is working great. Anyhow, any concerns, comments from the committee members? Yes, Dieter?
Yeah, in regard to the reduction of the parking spaces, I have no problems. The open landscape, no problems. What really puzzles me is the setbacks, especially the front yard one. Like, looking at the proposal, I understand why they wouldn't have just gone to 7.5 meters. What's 7.2 for? That's 26 centimeters difference. There's lots of room there. I just cannot fathom why whoever designed this said, well, we need a minor variance here for 26 centimeters. You know, anyways, lots of room. And on the back one, I suppose there could have been a design done on that too that would fit the requirements as well. I'm not sure, although the building itself is pretty tightly fit in there. But that front one, I just can't fathom why why we need minor variance on that part, front one.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll let the applicant speak to the proposed building along the front streetscape. The only explanation that I can offer at staff level, Member Eberhardt, with respect to the rear yard, is to facilitate access for larger vehicles. It's my understanding that like RVs, boats, that type of item is to be stored in the rear unit 1 building at the rear of the building. So garnering an extra 3 meters, 10 feet of access along the rear gives the potential users of that unit additional turning radius and storage area to get vehicles in and out of that rear building. In regards to the 20.26 meters on the front, whether that's access, et cetera, I'm not sure. That we'll let the applicant provide that clarity.
Anyone else on the committee? Eugene, you want to speak?
goes up there. And I presume they have minimum setback for a reason. So they cut that in half, basically cut in half, I kind of question that myself. If you get rid of the green space at the same time, not much environmental compared to everybody. Hopefully, most of my concern was the
I saw that by your letter, Eugene. Yeah.
objection. It could be drainage wise, whatever that shallow land. We have a field up on there to get that. So, you know, it don't know it'll be a problem, but I know that once it's there, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see any reason. I mean, it's an application change by dropping one of the other units and that higher unit be put in. Eliminate all the need for any adjustments back there. Yes, that's my opinion.
Okay, appreciate it. Anyone else have any comments, questions? Yes, Marilyn?
Actually, Eugene did bring something up, and I did notice that there's karst topography
Can't
there.
hear you, Marilyn.
Sorry, I did notice that there's karst topography there. And I did think about that when they're shortening up the space between the property, the Lynch property and their own property. And you do know that they will be disturbing something. And even though we have written in there that they're not to interfere with the neighbors as far as drainage, et cetera, are concerned. I did notice that, and the karst topography does like to create a problem sometimes. So that was my thought on that. I don't know a lot about that. Just wondered.
Jason?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can speak, or Member Everhart can precede me, and I can speak at the end if you wish. It's up to you.
Yeah, in regard to the reading the report that came back from Quinte Conservation, who's recommended that their karst study be done. I noticed it's not in the approval requirements. So I thought maybe we should discuss that. I mean, as they've noted, and I noticed on the site there, they've got that all cleared now, and there's huge fissures in the rock all through that entire area, especially where they're proposing for the next 3 buildings. That's all been cleared. The conservation made quite a big point of the karst thing. Should having a study done on that. So I'm not sure whether we should add that to the requirements or what the feeling of that is. I know personally this karst thing is becoming more and more prevalent for some reason. I don't know why. I know 10 years ago nobody ever heard of karst topography. Being a geography studier way back in university, I always thought karst topography, and I thought to myself, there's no karst topography in this area. There's no sinkholes. There's no disappearing streams. There's no caves. I mean, there are a few little ones around, but it isn't a prevalent feature in this area. But they keep bringing it up and they keep mentioning it. So my own personal experience, I just finished building my house. My basement is 10 feet high because of all the shattered limestone. I could not put a foundation in until they dug down in solid rock. So we ended up with a 10-foot basement. I guess that's karst topography conditions. Anyways, there's my, I don't know whether we should consider adding that to the approval or not.
I looked at that too, Dieter. I'm torn between. Like, I understand what you're saying, but I don't know whether it is necessary, even though your conservation authority has recommended it. I mean, everyone knows sometimes my thoughts on the conservation authority. Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recent in the karst topography and the QCA, Quinte Conservation comments, And the reason that the recommendation's not been included essentially is because the comments were tardy and they weren't received till Monday. That being said, this is a unique application in the sense as to other applications that we would see typically around the Committee of Adjustment, because this application necessitates site plan control approval. And site plan control approval is a full other submission requirement. And that's a requirement that is requiring Quinte Conservation Authority approval as well, or comment. So Quinte Conservation and staff had met on Monday and clarified that it would become a submission requirement of the applicant to provide confirmation that this karst topography natural hazard would not become an issue with respect to the new builds at time of site plan control. So for that reason, it's our opinion as staff that the Committee of Adjustment does not need to include that as a recommended condition for the minor variances. The variances that we're receiving or that are being sought this evening are unrelated to karst topography, and the conditions that we impose on an applicant should be entirely related to the conditions that we're considering at the committee level. Second to that comment, karst topography has absolutely become a forefront comment in our area in Eastern Ontario recently. Through Bill 109 and Bill 23 and some of the other changes at the provincial level, the Conservation Authority's realm of approval authority has changed, and natural heritage has become much less of a prevalent or area of expertise in what the conservation authorities across the province are able to comment on. And natural hazard features, including karst topography, as defined in the provincial policy statement, have become a very significant focal point, if you will, with Quinte Conservation specifically, and many of our developments in this area in our municipality. So I just say that, and I offer that as insight, as I suspect the Committee of Adjustment moving forward will see significant commentary respecting karst topography across our landscape here in Stone Mills Township. As it relates to Mr. Lynch's comment regarding the setback reduction on the rear yard, firstly, you're 100% correct in the sense that once that building or that setback is reduced and the building is constructed, yes, it's there. 4.5 meters is proposed. It's 3 meters approximately lesser than what's required according to our zoning bylaw, which is 7.5 meters. The primary intent of the setback distance for rear yard is to ensure compatibility amongst neighboring land uses and that there be no adverse effect from example of grading, drainage, shadowing, noise incompatibility, any of that sort with respect to a building and an adjacent land use. In the staff report and the site visit in which we completed at staff level, the neighboring property owner, I believe to be owned by yourself, is an agricultural operation, agricultural fields. There's no sensitive land use, if you will, right in adjacent to that rear lot line. More of the residential uses are to the north of the property along the interior side yard, and that 3.78 meters on the interior side yard setback would be essentially one to cause more effect in our opinion at staff's level than it would the rear yard setback of 4.5 onto an adjacent field that's undeveloped. The green space that'll exist around the perimeter of the building and in the rear yard, although the provision in the zoning bylaw landscape open space is proposed to go to 0, the reality is it will not be 0. The reality is it'll probably be closer to 5%, but understanding the exact calculation wasn't provided to staff, and it's probably unknown by the applicant at this point. So that's why the reduction, but you can see all the space in and around that building on the rear yard, for example, will all count and contribute to landscape open space. And that'll all assist with ensuring that there's no adverse effects from runoff or stormwater management onto any neighboring property. That being said, from a karst perspective to Member Fenwick's comment, yes, the applicant's cognizant of the commentary from Quinte Conservation, and staff are and will ensure that permitting is required through conservation, as well as we receive confirmation from a geotechnical engineer that bedrock is stable to support the uses that are proposed to be expanded, given that change in focus and natural hazard features that are on site. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. Well, how does the committee want to handle this? We need a motion either to approve or not. Pardon me? Moved by Bob. Do I have a seconder? Merrill? Any further discussion? Concerns? Yes, Merrill?
One more comment to both, both of you. I know you've been in business a very long. Yes, yes, and good for you. The agricultural business is so very important. And to you, the new world is bringing in a lot of new business, and yours is one of them. And so.
Merrill, would you speak at the microphone?
Sorry, so to this gentleman, the agricultural business is very important. And he's been in business a very long time, and we appreciate that. And to this gentleman, he's a new type of business, and this is the new world. So we need both. And congratulations to both of you for doing that, I have to say. And anyway, thank you.
Okay. Been moved by Bob, it's been seconded by Merrill that we approve as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. I would have to say I was impressed with the facility that was there. Very much so. You've done an excellent job. Yes.
I have to say, I have a story.
Very good.
Just over talking here and just thought, oh, I know. So I do have the unit over there, and it is very nice. Great.
So, the front building there, I think that was a design flaw. So I'm gonna actually go back to the designer. So that's, I think that's where we're lacking. It would have been a problem to move up. So I think it was caught up in the design aspect. And as, for Jimmy in the back, we have to follow that site plan control. So all our water has to come up front and be managed. So, any of those pads that are done, like, I got when you the bridge with the car spot, she was there maybe 5 minutes and left. All those pads that are there they have to be inspected by Vallo's engineering prior to gravel, and then they have to after gravel. They take flow basically, and in my opinion, that's what we do with stage is just a cap. It's a cap one, and it's not a fisher or a boy.
Okay, we'll carry on. A05-2023, Jason?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A05-2023 pertains to 357 Neville Point Road, and I think Chris is going to help us out and pull up the site plan drawing. This property, 357 Neville Point Road, is on the north side of Neville Point Road on Beaver Lake, and I believe, I may be corrected, but I believe it's the final lot on Neville Point that has been yet to be developed. So this is the last remaining vacant lot that you'll find, and we're here this evening to consider the development of a single family dwelling, which is consistent with every other lot in the adjacent area or neighborhood along that shoreline of Beaver Lake. The township zoning bylaw has a requirement for a 10-meter setback from a steep slope. It does define a steep slope being greater than 3:1, and having been on the subject property, that does constitute a steep slope for those of you who have been on the property. If an applicant's unable to comply, often the Conservation Authority and Township require a slope stability study or a geotechnical assessment to confirm that building in closer proximity than 10 meters or 30 feet will be something that can be considered longstanding and not have any effect on the foundation and stability of the build. A professional engineer, Martin Berger at Groundwork Engineering, was hired on behalf of the applicant to complete that assessment, slope stability assessment. It was reviewed by the Conservation Authority and Township staff. And we are here before you seeking approval to reduce that 10-meter setback requirement down to 8.22 meters. And essentially that is to open up some developable area on the property. For those of you who are on site, there's a bit of a rise from the street and the topography lends itself well to build at the top of the knoll, if you will, and then have the septic system gravity fed down to where it's sited on that plan in adjacency to Neville Point Road. Staff have no concerns in the proposal complying with the 4 tests of a minor variance. Conservation Authority has no concern as well. None of the neighbors have provided any comment or objection to the development of a single-story, 1,184 square foot single-family dwelling on the property. The applicant is here with us this evening if you have any questions directly for them. And I'm happy to answer any questions from a planning perspective that you may have. Thank you.
Committee members have any questions, concerns? Yes, Peter?
Oh, just a comment. Looking at the site plan that the engineers prepared, it's curious. When I paced off the distance from the top of the slope to the building, and I got 10 meters, pretty easy. But I noticed on their drawing that they use something called 9.1 meters stable slope allowance, and that's where they've got their 8.22 meters from, is from the slope that they created, and not really from the top of slope, which is solid granite there. So to me, the building is 10. So I'm concerned it's 10 meters back from the slope. But anyways, the engineers said different, and I'm not going to disagree with them. But saying that, still looking at the drawing, even seems to me there'd still be enough room to move that building back another 1.7 meters to conform with the 10 meters. So I'm just going to ask the owner whether that's an option or whether they don't want to bother with that.
Yes, sir.
Yes. We also had the.
You want to step up to the mic, please?
We also had.
Turn it on. So, there we are.
All right then. Yes, I had the future septic contractor and excavator out to the site, and he recommended that it would be better to have the space available for the septic bed and the cover of it, if possible, plus possibly to have at least a turnaround spot in the driveway or access there to the area. Yeah, this everybody in the neighborhood is built right on the cliff, and I like their porches are cantilevered. So I think that if possible, if we could leave it at that, and the way it is now drawn in and sited in, that would be greatly appreciated to be able to move with the process here.
I took a look at it, and as far as I'm concerned, it coincides with everything else that's along there. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the drawing as presented.
Yeah, I don't either. It's okay. It was just a comment. I know in cases where we've studied these things, we have on occasion said, well, you've got room, move the building back, so you don't have to do this. So it was just a comment, and I appreciate your comments on that as well. So no, I don't have any concerns with the way it is either, sir.
Yes, Merrill?
So the comment that I had was, I was a little bit confused, mostly because I didn't see the keyword, the well area. Because I was thinking there was already a drilled well there and I thought it was under the pile of brush. Anyway, I'm just thinking in terms of the neighbors and their wells and the septic and their septics.
Exactly. That also was looked at, not only by myself but also with Mr. Tupac and the well driller, potential well driller, Holmes Drilling.
Mhm.
And that well is more than 50 projected well in that area, even though there's a pile of brush there now,
It'll be gone.
is more than 50 feet from our projected septic. The neighbor to the south, who are non-permanent residents, they only rent the place out on the weekends to large crowds of people on the weekends in the summer. And the neighbor to the north, they pump, as he told me, from the lake, because their well, which is somewhere over here, between their driveway and my property line, it's the north edge, lost water. They either did not drill deep enough, so they do not use the well there. And if they did, it would still be actually farther than my projected well from my septic area.
Well, thank you for that.
Okay. Okay, Merrill,
I think so.
okay. That's Bob? No? Anyone? Need a mover? Moved by Bob, seconded by Dieter, that we approve as presented. Any further questions, concerns, comments? All those in favor? Carried. You're approved. Have a good evening.
I think let's get a roof off first, and then we'll consider something in a couple of years. Yeah, it took a long time just to get the required survey to satisfy Quinty and so on. And no, I don't have any kids. I'm just retired. Yeah. Oh, some of my friends have suggested, oh, you should get some spiral staircase down with a big ramp. Anyway, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I will.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay, one more brief. The well driller is anxious to get there and start on a well drilling. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. We're back to AO3-2023. We got our men on board, or are we going to deal without it?
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
I gotta unmute the TV, sorry. Can you test that for us?
Yeah, we can hear
Can you say hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
I got nothing.
Hello.
Can you hear us well? We can hear you. Hello? Hello?
Okay, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Alina, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, thanks.
There you go. We're on the air. Let's go.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. AO3-2023 pertains to a property address as 121B Vardy Lake Road. The applicants the subject property contains a single family dwelling. It's a waterfront property on Vardy Lake. And it is proposed to be expanded through an application for permission to expand legal non-conforming use. The proposal essentially seeks to double the floor area of the existing single-family dwelling, which is a single story, by adding a walkout basement or a second story, depending on which way you want to consider this this proposed development. It'd be 690 square feet approximately in area. It contain a utility room, a bedroom, and a bathroom, as well as an open uncovered deck on the water side, given the increase in height of the proposed building on site, for a deck basically from access off from the second story. Like the majority of waterfront properties within our municipality, this is an undersized lot, a lot of record, 0.2 hectares approximately. And it is zoned rural limited service based on the access and it being from a private unmaintained municipal road. This application, for those of us in committee who are familiar with minor variances, might look somewhat different in that it's not a traditional minor variance application to vary a specific provision. It's a permission application under section 45(2) of the Planning Act to basically expand the floor area in an area that it fails to comply given the water setback and aside any other yard setback requirements. As part of the proposed increase in floor area, the applicants are required under the building code to install a new sewage disposal system on the subject property. And that system would be compliant with our regulations from a planning perspective in that it exceeds 30 meters from the high water mark. Any other provisions, i.e. separation distances from wells, 100 foot, 50 foot, if it's a cased well, 100 foot if it's dug or uncased well, setbacks from property lines, the mantle height on the septic system, etc. All of that's regulated under the building code and not under the Planning Act, not regulated under zoning bylaw, and would be subject to township approval through the building department with respect to on-site sewage disposal systems. So essentially, the application that that has been presented to us through this proposal is to consider the appropriateness of increasing the floor area of a single family dwelling on the parcel, unrelated to the specifics of the septic system. Although, as you can see, staff have incorporated some conditions to ensure that those are adequately addressed moving forward. There has been 2 comments received from neighboring property owners through this technical circulation, public circulation of this application. And there is concern regarding septic systems and compliance with separation distances from wells. And again, we can get into the conversation and the questioning. However, this really isn't the forum for it, because essentially the applicants would not be able to pull a permit through our building permit approval process if they're not able to demonstrate compliance with all the well requirement separation distances. The other comment was related to rental term, like short-term accommodation, Airbnb, I suspect. That again is a limited comment for the capacity of the Committee of Adjustment, in the sense that the Township of Stone Mills does not currently have a short-term accommodation bylaw in effect. We don't regulate term or rental, like, for example, Prince Edward County does through a permitting process anywhere in our jurisdiction, not waterfront properties, not in the villages or hamlets, or throughout our municipality. So again, happy to answer any questions on that. And then thirdly, sorry, there was a comment that I had received related to karst topography, I think. And karst topography, as I mentioned a little bit earlier this evening, is becoming a very strong focal point of the conservation authorities, as it's declared and deemed and defined a natural hazard. And the Conservation Authority requires permit approval for waterfront developments, including this property. So should there be any concern through on-site investigations of karst, the presence of karst, a geotechnical engineer would be required to be hired by the owners to ensure that the stability of the bedrock is there from a karst perspective on this development. I think that sums up the overview of the staff report. I do recognize that the applicants are online. Hopefully they can hear us and speak, as well as members of the community or public are here and have signed in. And I can try and answer any questions that committee may have. Thank you.
Committee members have any questions, concerns? We do have 2 letters here, public comments, but I think Jason has addressed that quite well. That's up to the building department. I noticed a hand raised back here. Yes.
Didn't want to conversation, but I'm just
Can you come up and speak in the microphone, please?
testing. As you mentioned, one of our main issues here, of course, is the septic system being too close to my well and Dave's well. And I'm just wondering, where does this come into effect? Like, how is this dealt with to make sure that it's not built unless it's to code? You know, who makes that decision?
Jason?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, it's a great question. And how all these approvals really dovetail together is not, it's somewhat confusing. So essentially what this committee is being asked is it considered to be appropriate that the size and form of development on that property that's being proposed be deemed appropriate, and should it be approved? And if this committee essentially deems that to be true, through the preliminary, and through that review, there's a preliminary review by conservation authorities and our chief building official and our septic compliance coordinator, et cetera, to ensure that there is generally adherence to the requirements. And we've received all that preliminary review to say all of that looks like it could be complied with. However, great detail and examination has not been done. That's required at the permit process. So should the applicants this evening gain approval, they would necessitate a permit, 3 additional permits actually. So they'll require a permit through the Quinte Conservation Authority. They'll require a permit through the Ontario Building Code, through our chief building official for the actual building. And they'll require another permit through the Ontario Building Code Part 8 from the septic perspective. And that septic perspective is reviewed to take into consideration, for example, neighboring wells. And I think, Mr. Leader, we spoke on the phone that it's not as easy as simply looking at, say, okay, well, that's a drilled well. So we're okay to comply with the 50-foot separation distance with the new septic system. There has to be a minimum casing depth. I believe it's 6 meters in depth to ensure that that does meet the true definition of the building code of being a cased well, so that you can get down to 50 feet. Should it not be there, then you're into the 100-foot separation distances. And that's the review that's done at the permit stage. Because at this point, ultimately, you're really just looking at, in principle, could it be complied? Is the use appropriate, and could the development proceed? Should all those other items check themselves off? And that's when that review would occur. So I don't know if we can pull it up on the screen, but the committee here tonight has a recommendation in them for approval in principle, subject to 5 recommendations. And there's the 5 recommendations all have different components and speak to those permitting requirements that I just alluded to through the other agencies. So for example, condition 2 says the subject lands lie within a regulated area of Hardy Lake. The owner applicant will acknowledges that Quinte conservation permitting is required prior to any on-site development. The next one talks to wells and casings. The following one talks about approved drawings. So it gets sort of entwined with, should it be approved here, then they'll get going. The applicants will proceed to additional level of detail and permitting at the subsequent stages. Hopefully that clarifies, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Just because we approved the minor variance here tonight, there's still other hoops that have to be gone through before there's ever a shovel put in the ground, which makes it the way it should be. You have a question, sir?
Yes.
Speak in the microphone. please.
Any of those other
Chair, no, they're not meetings.
not public?
No, this is the public sort of the kickoff, if you will. Sort of that establishing the Planning Act relief and holding a statutory public meeting and a decision. Any of the permit issuance is no different than, for example, a building permit issuance for a deck or for a new house or a shed or some of that sort that's done between municipal staff or conservation authority staff and an applicant directly. It doesn't necessitate a statutory public meeting.
Open forum to make our point. As far as the septic tank goes.
That's really not in our realm here to deal with tonight.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I mean, this is the only public realm associated with this file.
Right.
That being said, septic is not, if we were varying septic, for example, to fit it on an undersized lot and it was too close to floodplain or water, then this committee would be tasked with that specific question. Do they deem it appropriate for that septic system to fit on this lot, given the relief that's required?
So only if
In this case, there's no relief or variance requested for septic systems, for example, because the assumption is that the applicants aren't going to get a permit if they can't comply with the separation distances that are required under the building code.
Yeah, assumptions scare me. That's assumed, right? Yeah.
So poor wording in my choice, through you, Mr. Chair. I shouldn't have said assumptions. The committee is not making assumptions in any sort. That's and I'm making that, I say that at my level because I'm reviewing a plan that shows that it complies. And I'm not the chief building official that reviews that component of the permitting issuance. So when I say that word assumption, it's that part of the process and the permit issuance will be completed in accordance with the Building Code Act by our chief building official.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, now will we be notified of all this as it goes along? Like, will we get documentation or, be notified by each?
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, you'll be informed of this decision this evening. You've signed in, you've provided, you're on the record as a public, as a member of the public addressing concern. You'll be aware of this sort of public process. Building permit processes are very different than my world of Planning Act approval in that they're not a public process. You won't be circulated, for example, a notice or a placard that says the applicant will proceed with building activity 5 days from now. That's not a legislative requirement, nor is it a township municipal best practice.
There will just be a notice put up that a building will take place.
There is, through you, that's a good point. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is a sign under the Building Code Act that you're obligated to post on site when you to make any applicant or neighboring property owner aware that a building application has been submitted, it's been approved, and the building is to be developed, and there are required inspections that our staff would visit the property on. But that's not necessarily direct mail out, for example, like you've seen for this evening.
But also too, at the end of the day, a building permit will not be issued if it doesn't meet all the criteria of distances set down by the proper authorities. So all we're dealing with is with the minor variance in front of us. The rest of it is going to be somebody else's decision to make, not ours. Yes, Dieter?
Yeah, I just want to make one more comment. Again, I was talking with Spark there on site yesterday, and she brought up this issue of B&Bs. And I know that has nothing to do with what we're doing here. So, you know, these issues come up, you know, the people bring up that really aren't in our province to deal with. So the only suggestion I can have for you is talk to the owners, the new owners, and find out what their plans are if you're concerned about that. That's the only advice I can give you at this point.
As far as the B&B goes, it's no different than having a family get together. There's still going to be people. Still going to be people. Anyhow, I need a motion to approve or deny. Yes, dear? Motion to approve? Second by Merrill. Any further discussion, concerns? Questions? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. There are no severance applications. Any other deputations? I guess not. Any other business? We do have the notification of the OCA conference in Niagara Falls on the 4th of June. I would very much like to go, but unfortunately, I got a grandson's wedding. So that would be all right, I guess. So I see that there is an agenda up. I see where Sidney Troister is on deck again. He's back. Yeah, he's always back. He's always back. Yeah, he always makes a real good presentation. So if anyone on the committee has any desire to go, it's usually a very well learning program that they put on, but get your reservations in early. It'll be full. It'll be full.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the only thing I'd like to add is if there is interest, please be in touch with staff so we can try and help coordinate attendance, scheduling, membership rates, all that sort of stuff, and figure out how this fits in with our budget. As many of you are aware, the 2023 budget season wasn't the easiest with the cost of living increases, inflation that we've experienced. So I know staff's budget was cut on training and conferences. I know council's budget, and I suspect committees was as well. I don't know the number off the top of my head. It is on here for awareness. You are OCA members, you are committee members. However, I just want to make that known that if every committee member plans to go to Niagara Falls for 3 days for a full conference, we need to look at the budget and make sure we can afford it. So let's, if that's the case, please be in touch so we can coordinate it before you go and book attendance.
I've already stated my case, so you know I'm not going. Anybody has anything else for that to the committee? Yes, Jason?
The only other thing, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, quickly, the province continues its excitement with changing legislation. I've made a few comments in the past about Bill 109 and Bill 23 that are new to 2020, that were new in 2022. The province has released a draft provincial planning statement, they call it now, not a provincial policy statement. So the 2020, the last is what we have is a 2020 PPS. Usually it's a 4 or 6 year update. And we're 3 years into that, and it looks like we might have a new one this summer. So it's out for comment right now. I plan on putting it on our council agenda next meeting, May 1 or May 15th, just for council's awareness. If you're interested in reviewing it, there's not significant changes in our jurisdiction, I wouldn't say. It's fairly significant in the GTA context in that they're looking at consolidating the Greater Golden Horseshoe and the growth plan and amalgamating that with the actual provincial policy statement. So again, fairly significant changes in the context of the province, but maybe not necessarily so much in our jurisdiction. That being said, it's more policy change and more more legislative changes for us to consider as professional planners. So that's the only update I wanted to add. Thanks.
Yes, Merrill?
A question. Just on the behalf of these people and the concern about the Airbnb.
Turn this way, Merrill.
Sorry. I'm speaking to the folks and anyway, so concerning their Airbnb, and I was curious about that myself and didn't get a chance to look to see if we had a bylaw in place, and apparently we don't. So Jason has mentioned that. I don't know, and here's the question. This is outside of our purview, of course, but I'm wondering if you should contact council concerning the need for such a bylaw, if that's a concern for you.
Through Mr. Chair, yeah. Thanks, Member Fenwick. Essentially, we currently do not have a short-term accommodation bylaw. We don't have a permitting system that some municipalities use for short-term accommodations. And we at staff's level receive a handful of calls and inquiries and concerns every year related to short-term accommodation, typically waterfront lots, Beaver Lake, Barty Lake, some of the rivers, Salmon, Napanee. However, it hasn't been a focal point of council at this point to address and direct staff to report back on implementing a policy and a permitting system. However, I wouldn't disagree with Member Fenwick in the sense that if it is an issue on Barty Lake specifically in your area, to contact your municipal elected officials, and we can take a look at it at staff's level. At staff's level, at management's level, we get our direction from council with respect to what we're reporting back and investigating. So if that's the directive, we can absolutely do so.
Anything else for the committee here this evening? Motion to adjourn. Moved by Dare, seconded by Merrill. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.